Hi everyone, I'm Olesa Pindak, Mindbody Green's executive editor, and I'm delighted to be here today with Will Cole, MBG class instructor and total expert on the elimination diet. We're going to be talking about elimination diet myths and taking all of your questions. So write in, let us know on Facebook what's going on, what your questions are about the elimination diet, about food intolerances, whatever you need to know, we're going to answer. So let's start out with you say there are 5 top myths that come up for you all the time in your practice. So can you tell us, first of all, you say that the elimination diet is not only for people with food intolerances and digestive issues.
Yeah, so when we talk about the elimination diet, a lot of times people think, well, my gut is fine, I'm going to the bathroom fine, I don't have any food intolerances that I know of, why would I want to do an elimination diet? And I think that it's important to kind of look at why we do the elimination diet in the first place, and that's inflammation. So when someone has inflammation in their body, it can impact them in many different ways. And when you have gut problems, you don't have to have gut symptoms to have gut problems. Most of gut problems actually don't present in as far as digestion.
So it's not just a stomach ache, it's not just those things that you think about when you think about, like, my gut hurts. It's actually a whole array of other symptoms.
Right, because your gut's your second brain, so it could be impacting your brain fog, anxiety, depression. These are very ubiquitous issues. So again, brain problems, inflammatory problems, this is far-reaching, the far-reaching implications of gut problems and the far-reaching implications of inflammation problems.
Now, what about the fact that people say that that it's too restrictive, it's too difficult? You say that's a myth, it's not. Is it really that easy?
Well, I think it's reframing your perspective on food. Is it restrictive? Is it restrictive to know for certain what foods work for your body and which foods don't work for your body? If you feel great, feeling great and having certainty is freedom. It's the opposite of restriction. And avoiding foods that make you feel like crap, is that restrictive? It's not. It's having this roadmap that's personalized for you. And I think that's what the elimination diet, I mean, in regards to how I teach it and I implement it with my patients, it really gives people freedom and a roadmap that works for their body.
Okay, and you say it's not that hard and that there actually are a few different types. And that the big myth is that there's this one type and there's a specific protocol, but you say actually that's not true. There are different ways you can approach it that maybe make it a little bit less restrictive and daunting. Yeah,
absolutely. There's a lot of ways to do the elimination diet. So you may hear that word elimination diet and you're thinking of one connotation. There's so many ways to do it, and if you're reading an article about it, it may be different than what we're talking about here at Mindbody Green. So the way that, again, I talk about it in my class and with my patients, it would be considered a modified autoimmune elimination diet. We change it up, make it practical, make it easy to do for the everyday person, and you don't have to have an autoimmune condition to do it. We're just talking about inflammation, and that's really what autoimmunity is. It's end-stage inflammation. But then there's that whole autoimmune inflammation spectrum where it could just be someone with brain fog or someone with anxiety. So we are dealing with inflammation here in the way that we're doing it. And again, there's so many different ways to do the elimination diet. This is just one way.
Now, what about the fact that your myth number 4, you say, is that there's no science behind it? People tell you, well, fine, this is all well and good, but come on, show me the research.
Yeah, exactly, I hear that quite often. So what food doesn't impact your health. I don't know how people still believe this in 2016, but it's still out there. Foods have a dramatic impact on your health. Every food that you eat is going to feed health or feed disease. So
people tell us too that doctors tell them that food has no impact.
No
matter what you're eating.
Yeah, it amazes me how many people that are going through a health problem, let's say autoimmune conditions, and their rheumatologists are telling them this has nothing to do, food has nothing to do with your symptoms and your disease. But when patients are able to dampen inflammation and regain their health, that says otherwise, and the research says otherwise. So the research term for elimination diet is called oligoantigenic diet. So it's basically...
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, I can't. Oligoantigenic. So this is, we're removing the most inflammatory foods out there to give the best shot of bringing inflammation down, calming things down, resetting your immune system, and then slowly reintroducing that back in to see, okay, what your body loves, what your body hates, and since we're all different, that reintroduction process is going to look different, and the end result's going to look different because we're all different. So.
And now, myth number 5, this is just another fad diet. So you say that you hear all the time, oh yeah, that elimination diet, sure, that'll come and go.
Yeah, so I think you're right. It's getting a lot of buzz online, and we talk about it a lot here. The elimination diet, is it just another fad? Well, I would look at this as not being a diet to begin with. It is really, when done in a specific way, done in the way that we're talking about it here, it's really meant to be a roadmap to find out what works for your body. And it is finding out what your body loves, what your body hates, and because we're all different, it's not this strict diet that's going to go on forever. You're going to bring foods back in, and again, if you feel great on foods, keep on eating it. If your labs look great, keep on eating it. But if you don't feel well on a food, or if it's impacting your labs and your overall health landscape, then you're going to keep those foods out. So it's not a fad. It's really the gold standard for functional medicine. It's a gold standard for food intolerances. It's a gold standard to really finding out what foods work for your body.
So tell us just really quickly your ideal elimination diet. What are the 3 markers of it? How long does it take? What are you eliminating? Can you just give us like a few quick bullet points on what the elimination diet is? And then I want to dive into some questions because we're getting some good things happening.
So again, the elimination diet that we go over in my Mind Body Green class is 60 days. And you know, since the class has been out, people have asked, why 60 days? I mean, it's not a magic number, but it is, in my clinical experience, seeing thousands of patients over the past 10 years, it is the minimum. It's a good time. It's a great time to kind of say, let's calm things down. Where you're at today, if you're going through health problems, it didn't happen overnight. So 60 days really is relatively short compared to how long people have been going through these issues. So it's 60 days. It's 8 weeks. So it's allowing your body, giving your body a chance to nourish it with yummy, delicious, good food medicine, and then reset your immune system, start healing the gut, and bringing inflammation levels down. So the things we're removing during this time are the foods that are most likely to cause you inflammation. And it's not to say everything we're removing is going to cause you inflammation, but we're going to basically look at all the potential bad guys. We're going to calm things down. So the big guns that we're removing out are going to be gluten, the G word, the other gluten-free grains, which can cross-react as gluten, so rice and corn and quinoa, healthy foods, but what works for one person may not work for you. So we're trying to wipe the slate clean. I'm not making any indictments or generalizations on these foods are bad, but we want to calm things down and then reintroduce and see what works for your body. So gluten-free grains. We're also going to remove legumes, which, again, a good plant-based source of proteins for people, but they also are high in lectins and phytates, which are proteins that can cause some gut irritation and inflammation.
So many people that are trying to eat healthy are eating a lot of these things
that
you're talking about. Right?
Absolutely, with good
Rice
intentions.
and legumes, right? That's a staple.
Absolutely. And again, we are not saying they're inherently bad, but we're saying is we're all different, and these are the foods that are most likely to cause inflammation, that are real foods, but are still potentially inflammatory for some people. So, obvious we're getting rid of junk food. That's a no-brainer. But I think that the foods that are the real foods are the things that people are wondering about. So we're also removing nightshades. They're a plant group, like white potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants. Again, healthy foods. But since we're all different, we're trying to find out what's causing your body inflammation. And this process, this 60-day journey for your health, is an illuminating, informative time for you to really get an inward information on what works for your body.
So no, this leads right into one of our questions that's popping up on Facebook, which is Carrie wants to know how you do this if you're a vegan. How does the elimination diet work for vegans? How do you do that? What will she be able to eat? She wants to know.
Okay. That's a question that I get a lot, because in the Mind Body Green class, we have a discussion board where I get questions from people and I get to answer questions. It's a cool time to really interact with people. One of the questions we get is that, like, what do I do? I'm a vegan. All right, this is a tough question for me. I would say if someone's interested in doing the elimination diet, they are probably going through health problems, and they have to do something different to see different results. So you do not have to be a carnivore to do this elimination diet. But I would say that it's very difficult when you're a vegan to get the appropriate macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates when you're doing this elimination diet. If you're doing it for political reasons or moral reasons or religious reasons, I think that's a different conversation, and we can talk about that in the discussion board. But generally speaking, if you're just doing it because you're well-intentioned and you're trying to eat healthy, and I'm just a health vegan, then I would say let's talk about slowly reintroducing animal proteins, clean, organic, grass-fed, local proteins. And again, you could be a pescatarian just eating fish and chicken. We can modify this. So it's possible, but it's possible, so you can do it.
Cool. Okay. What about this is sort of a fun one from Sarah. Are there any mental tips for people who want to try this but have some willpower problems?
Yes. So this is actually a module in the class. We go over this, but briefly, I would say you have to, a great way to do it with my patients is to do food logging. Even if you're not showing it to anybody, even if you're showing it to me.
And do you mean literally writing down every single thing that you eat?
Yeah, I mean, not
Is
to
that
be...
going to help your willpower?
I think it does. I think it brings mindfulness to a lot of people. I think to varying degrees, depending on the personality, it helps to varying degrees. But in general, I see it be this mindfulness practice to really bring awareness and not reactively going for foods, because if you have to write it down, you're more apt to be like, wait, do I really want this food, or is this sort of impulse?
And is that amplified if you show it to people?
I think it's amplified. Support system, a community, accountability, for sure.
Lindsay wants to know, what's the most unexpected allergen you've seen with your patients?
Unexpected allergen.
Yeah.
So I would say everyone knows the big ones that we talked about. I would say the unexpected ones, and I wouldn't use the word allergies really, but I would use the word food immune reactivities. Yeah. So foods that cause inflammation in your body. Again, they can be an allergic, but they don't necessarily. Foods that cause a food intolerance or food sensitivity, I would say nightshades. Again, healthy foods. There's nothing inherently wrong with them. But peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, I love tomatoes. I would be heartbroken if I couldn't eat tomatoes. But if I felt really lousy when I ate tomatoes, I wouldn't want to eat them. So that's one of those things where I see that being a problem for some people.
Definitely. And we always hear that that the darker the colors, the better. So it seems like a lot of the nightshades have those nice dark colors.
Yeah, they're nice, dark, bright colors.
Okay, Rebecca wants to know, what's the likelihood that I'll be able to incorporate certain more inflammatory foods back into your diet several years later?
Okay,
so if you're sensitive to it now, are you still going to be sensitive to it later?
Not necessarily. So that's a great point. And there is an end in sight depending on the person.
Yeah.
And again, just because let's say you bring a food back in and you don't feel well on it, it doesn't mean that you have to avoid it forever and ever. It may just have been too soon, and we have to heal the gut, be more aggressive about healing the gut and giving your body time, and then you can bring it in later, and maybe it works for you later.
In smaller amounts, or how do you reintroduce it to check it out?
Good question. So I would make a log when you do reintroduction, because sometimes it's not so much the food, but the frequency of the food, where someone knows I can have oatmeal if I have it 2 times a week, or I can have eggs if I have it 2 times a week, but if I have it 3 or 4, I start feeling not so good. So we're all different, and again, this reintroduction process can really give insight into not only what foods work for your body, but how much of those foods work for your body. Because I think this process really I want this is my goal, is to give you as much wiggle room as possible. Yeah. I don't want you to be slave to food. I want you to have food liberation, to really enjoy food and enjoy delicious food, but foods that work for your body.
Kayla wants to know, what are the best gut healing supplements? Can you have supplements while you're doing the elimination diet? If so, which ones? And then what should you support your gut with after?
Okay, that's a good question. I would use food as medicine, and that's something that we pinpoint in the class, is that using foods as a gut healer. So bone broth, most of you guys know that, but bone broth is good for a lot of people. Again, doesn't work for everybody, and again, we talk about modifying it in the class. If it is an issue, some people have histamine intolerance and heavy brewed bone broth doesn't work for those people. But bone broth is good. Fermented foods is good.
Such a great time of year to be thinking about bone broth too, right? And warm and cozy.
Exactly. My patients don't like having bone broth during the summer. I said, you can make bone broth smoothies. I don't know why they don't like that idea.
I hear bone broth popsicles are a thing.
Yeah, bone broth popsicles. But now you're right. It's fall time. It's more like nourishing, cold, warm stews and broths are a good thing.
Right.
So fermented foods, so sauerkraut are good. Water kefir, coconut kefir, you could do that. And L-glutamine is a good supplement. Getting a quality L-glutamine is good for rebuilding the enterocytes or gut lining cells. So that's a good supplement if you want to supplement.
Fantastic. I think that we're just about out of time, but thank you so much for being here. And thank you for all the great questions.
Thanks.